legitimately, like, our body of work would be invalidated almost immediately. That's how big this change is. It would destroy so many combos just right out of the gate.
But it's all the ones that I hate.
I don't think that's bad.
Yeah,
I hate these things.
And
it fixes Booming Blade too, to be honest.
Yeah.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything Dungeons & Dragons related. On this episode, it is our 100th episode!
Woo! And we asked all of you to send in fan questions. Well, I guess just questions. If you're not a fan, that's not really our place to judge. But asked you to send in questions, and we are just going to go through a couple that we found interesting. Really as many as we can get through in a normal episode length, and see what comes out of it. It's going to be a different format than usual. We actually used to kind of do this with an Ask M&M segment, but stopped having time for it because our multi-class discussions got crazy long for whatever reason.
And he stopped responding to our emails, so.
That was good. I liked it.
All right, thanks.
So to start off, this was actually the first question we received, and like my favorite one to talk about, and we're kicking it off strong. This is from Oregon IT, or Oregon Rolled a 20 on Twitter. They asked, what are your viewpoints that have changed from when you first started doing this? This being the show, of course. And I think in our conversations outside of the show or anything, we have tons of talks about how listening to old episodes is hard. It's not as well put together. The production quality's worse, audio quality's worse, editing is worse. There's no video, which we have now. But even above that, there's just a little bit less quality in conversations. So, Kevin, do you have anything that comes front of mind with big opinion changes from when we first started, when we were young podcasters who didn't even know how to multiclass?
Nothing specific that jumps out like, oh, I hated this class and now I love it, or anything like that. Just a general appreciation for all classes now. They all have something good, and I feel like we've gotten a lot more open-minded of finding good ways to make multiclasses. I think really early on, there was quite a few where it was like, oh, this is crap. And then we went into it with that mindset and we just talked about how it's crap and move on. And now I'm realizing, no, there's actually some good options out there for almost everything. You could find at least something that works.
Totally. And that was a very, very big thing. I was extremely dismissive of entire classes at times. I listened to old episodes, and I think I had said at one point, like, the Ranger's just bad as a whole, which isn't really true. The Ranger Beastmaster sucks, sure, the player's handbook version, but in general, the Ranger's not bad, and people kind of shit on it too much. Same with the Monk. I don't know if I was too down on it, but that's a community consensus. I think at one point, a big regret of mine is I said that the Druid has no class identity, and I don't really know where I was going with that statement.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
It was like, oh, it's a full
I know what it means. It's just so wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, I heard it and I'm like, what the hell is this person talking about? But that person happened to be me. I think I'd never played a Druid. We didn't really have anyone ever correctly play a Druid at our table. And all that I knew about them was, I guess they can summon some animals sometimes, but so can other classes. So it wasn't really that special. And Wild Shape was only good with, the Moon Druid. And beyond that, it wasn't really great in combat and whatever. There's been new Druids released since then that definitely changed that aspect. But overall, it was ignoring the entire spell list, the unique spell list, that's like this crazy battlefield control and just all this stuff that, Druids are good. I don't know why the hell I said that.
You bring it actually to an interesting point, and this is, I don't want to sound arrogant with this, but I believe that the game has actually changed a lot more than any of our opinions have.
That's fair.
We had opinions that were more applicable back in the day, and now they've added so much that the game has really fundamentally changed in a lot of ways. I think Druids are a great example of a class that had two forms, and one of them made sense, and the other one was like, what is this? And now it's fleshed out. You've got fire druids, and you've got spore druids that really do have identifying features.
So maybe I wasn't
That's
super
fair.
dumb.
No, I mean,
Will, how about you?
even when it was just moon and land druid, there was still a lot of baked-in flavor and identity there.
No, I don't know what I was talking about. I just didn't know. All right, but Will, you being our resident stubborn asshole, have you had any opinions that you feel like have changed? Because listening to the first episode, okay.
I don't know. Actually, this is something we do have to flesh out because it implies that I remember my opinions from even yesterday. So.
Right.
I, to my gracious co-hosts, have my opinions changed? I'm curious.
I actually think you've become a little bit more open to different multi-class combinations and just overall exploring different ideas compared to before, where you would just say multi-classing is dumb and you should never do it. Now you say it, and I don't think you mean it. Before, I think you meant it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I am softer on multi-classing. I'm still a little wary of it, but it does make the game more flavorful, and it lets you do a lot of cool stuff that we've uncovered over these hundreds of episodes.
Hundreds, fuck! I didn't know we made so many episodes.
I've definitely got even more open to multiclassing. I'm at the point now where I can actually see like some cool, viable options for like 3-way multiclassing. At the beginning, that was like taboo for us.
Yeah,
that was like, oh, that's terrible. Why even talk about that? Why even look at it? We won't entertain that on the show. I don't know why we felt so strongly about it. But now that like further along and we've covered the majority of like the 2-way multiclasses out there, I'm starting to be a lot more open to 3, sometimes even 4-way.
Wow.
Maybe.
You hear it here first, everyone.
Yeah.
Kevin is open to 3 ways, maybe even 4 ways.
Thanks for spinning that.
Anytime.
There's no reason you can't take a level in every class.
No, that's a good point. This is by no means a formal announcement to the continuation. I mean, we still have a couple multi-classes left, but I know people have asked us to do like, are you ever going to do the try multi-classes? They're still a little bit hard to talk about, but I definitely think that there is room for them at your table, especially when they are influenced by character growth. Like a bard spy. So like this is just right off the top of my head. A bard spy who is, basically a bard rogue multi-class to start. That's something that's really easy and kind of flavor light for the first 10 levels. And then, I don't know, something happens after 10 levels and they take an oath of something and they become a paladin. That's still extremely fitting for the character. It's not going to ruin it in any way because it's already like a melee focused class. And now you're adding in paladin stuff, which is just great. So, keeping it very high level here, but there's really a lot more opportunities than I think we were open to at first.
For sure. Or I'm not going to do this, but I have a bard rogue multiclass in our main campaign. And like the thought popped in my head, it's like, oh, like my charisma's at 20. It's like I could take a couple levels of warlock and that would not be crap.
Right.
It would actually, I get a lot of good stuff out of it, especially some of the new ones added in, or just go classically Hexblade as always.
Right.
And then it opens up a bunch of really cool role-playing opportunities as our DM love to kind of bring the patron into it and make them a character. And
yeah.
So yeah, definitely a lot of opportunities there.
All right. So next question here. And this one is relevant to Will's shirt. I'd say who it's from. It's Asa1128. So, or Asa1128. Maybe I shouldn't have said the name. Never mind.
But we started with saying the name.
Yeah.
We got to credit to people.
If we say your name, get over it. Their question is, our great overlord Jeremy Crawford holds a gun to your head and tells you to fix Booming Blade without getting rid of it. You must make it fun and useful, but not the only optimal choice. What do you do?
Nothing.
Do it, Jeremy! Pull the fucking trigger!
Wow. Okay, so I'm the only one with an actual answer.
No, that is my actual answer. I don't think it's as broken as you guys make it out to be.
I think that the only change that I would make is very, very small, and that is adding a saving throw to the damage that triggers when you try to run away. Or try to move. Okay. I think that it's that you're locked down and you have absolutely no way of doing anything. You're just going to take another like 3d8 damage, and that just to me isn't fun. It's already doing damage on the hit. It's already doing extra damage after level 5. So I don't think that it needs to have this even more damage without any trigger beyond movement, because movement is so fundamental, and that ability to just lock down the battlefield and run away and do your little, oh, I hit you and then I ran away, oh, goodbye, is what I really hate about it. So if it was like a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC, it would make it so that you couldn't cheese it as a multi-class cantrip where somebody has a really low spell save and just they pick up Booming Blade as their cantrip, and now they're steamrolling with a cantrip and they have no save behind it. So that is my actual way. I think it's still fun. I don't think it's just destroys it by any means, but it brings it more in line, even just damage wise with other cantrips.
I could get behind that.
Yes.
Okay, so pre-level 5, it doesn't do extra damage on the hit.
Correct.
Which means it's in line with just any other melee attack. And then 5th level comes and other classes get their extra attack. And then you get an extra 1d8 on a hit. So you doing 2 attacks still outpaces that, because now, like, let's say you're using a d8 weapon, and so now it's 2d8 plus your strength or dex twice versus 2d8 plus your strength or dex once. So it's still outpacing it, have the ability to break it up more than one opportunity to hit. It's not an all or nothing thing.
Right.
But you're right. Once you throw that movement damage in there, now it's outpacing the extra attack.
Yeah, and at higher levels, it gets significantly better.
I was gonna say then at 11th, it's what, 2d8. Unless you're in a fighter, then your extra attack doesn't keep going up. So
right, it does 2d8, and then I believe when they move, it does 3d8. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's a lot. I mean, 5d8 to a normal attack is and its utility on top of that. It's not just damage. Right. So I think that if you added the saving throw, it kind of makes it potentially either, especially if it targets Constitution, because that is the best save for most NPCs or stat blocks, we'll say.
Right.
So that's it. Boom. Booming Blade fixed. Will, any thoughts on that?
Also very easy homebrew to add.
Say that again?
Very easy homebrew to add.
Yeah, without a doubt. Say, I know this is the first time we've actually discussed it. Maybe we'll try it sometime. Maybe not. I don't know. The fact that I hate Booming Blade has become funny at the table as well. So why fix what brings entertainment?
Right. If just another thought on it, if the reason someone really doesn't like it and doesn't want to see it and it's just raw state at the table is because it is making casters comparable to martial and melee, which it kind of does, even if the extra attack is outpacing it. It's not by that much. You could just have the base attack never go up in damage. That never does extra damage. You do your melee attack, it hits like a normal melee attack, and then if they move, they take the 1d8 and then 2d8 and 3d8. Have that go up. And no save added to that or anything.
Yeah.
That would then that would be a pretty big nerf to it.
It would.
But it would still make it a unique cantrip.
Right, which I feel like is what I want out of Booming Blade. I want it to feel more unique. I don't want it to feel like people are building entire classes around this cantrip, because we already have Eldritch Blast for that. For warlocks. We don't need a whole bunch of cantrips that are like play style defining. I don't think that's what cantrips should be ever. Which I guess is just a larger complaint about cantrips. That's
actually, the way you said that about Eldritch Blast made me think, this is way too in the weeds, but if you looked at Booming Blade as this kind of generic melee cantrip and created kind of an Eldritch Blast background to it. You know how you've got invocations that fundamentally change how you blast?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That, but fundamentally changing how you boom. It's just, where do you put that?
Okay.
Because I'm not talking about invocations. I'm talking in general. Eldritch Blastifying Booming Blade.
Yeah, would have been cool for like the Blade Singer Wizard. Obviously, that's not the direction they went by any means, but I could definitely see a martial version of a full spellcaster giving them a special cantrip that's not
the Blade
Booming
Boomer.
Yeah, the Blade Boomer.
Yeah, well, I mean that would start speaking into just a whole bigger design change.
100%.
For Dungeons and Dragons, where you have like all cantrips and then you can like customize them or something. That's just has nothing to do with class or anything like that. Could be cool, but I mean, completely different design. So I don't think we're gonna see that.
No.
Just to fix my middling complaints about Booming Blade. It's like, oh, I kind of don't like how it gets used too much. It's like, oh yeah, we'll change everything for you.
I think that is a problem that some people do get into, though, when trying to talk about D&D 5e, is it's just like, oh yeah, it's really easy to fix if you just completely replace this fundamental understanding of the game. It's like, look, just go play Pathfinder. Pathfinder has it. Pathfinder 2 is, from what I hear, great and a lot more customizable. And if that's what you're looking for, great. D&D 5e is simple on purpose in some ways. So no cantrip customization. Be a fun like table thing though. I could see as like a reward for a quest, let's say, is now your sacred flame does this additional thing to it. I don't know what this
I don't know
is.
how much we've gone into it, but my redesign of D&D 5e, which is just turning all classes into warlocks, would actually apply perfectly here.
Warlocks and warlocks.
Warlocks and warlocks.
Yeah.
The invocation list is basically the entire class list.
Sure.
We just turn every class feature into invocations of some stripe.
There you
Bam.
go. Yeah, that makes
Fixed it.
perfect
I fixed
sense.
Booming Blade. I just had to get rid of almost everything in the game.
And for some reason, you do seem happier. All right. Next question, continuing on with the changes and fixes aspect. This is from Caleb M. And this is, how would you fix the Berserker Barbarian? So the Berserker Barbarian, if you're not familiar with them, are a player's handbook class or subclass of Barbarian. And their main drawback is that in order to activate their main class feature, which is getting an extra attack as a bonus action while raging, it comes at the cost of gaining a level of exhaustion once the rage ends. So it really sucks because you have this great class feature of, again, getting an extra attack, really good for a Barbarian. They don't have any other non-feat ways to get a third attack, but they have to gain a level of exhaustion, and after an entire adventuring day, they're going to have to get carried around by their party, and that's just silly.
Right. And it takes a bonus action to do that attack.
Yes.
Instead of just like a free attack.
Right.
So they can't even use the extra attack on the round that they activate the rage on.
Right.
Which feels bad.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, great. How many rounds is this going to last? Oh, 3 or 4? I played one for a one-shot, and I had multiple times where I wasted a rage, which always feels a little bit bad because, you know, it's a limited resource. But I wasted a rage, and I gained a level of exhaustion from it. That sucked.
Yeah, so you can rage without activating the frenzy,
Correct.
Which is what gives you the exhaustion. But then it's like, what are you doing?
Then you're ignoring your main class feature.
Right. So first off, then just make it a free extra attack, not take a bonus action.
Sure.
I don't know if that would fix it entirely, but it would definitely help.
Yeah, and it's not like Barbarians have so many other uses for their bonus action that's going to just like destroy the game by any means. They really, after that, on subsequent turns, will probably use the bonus action to attack every single time. So they wouldn't use it for anything else. I don't know. It's not like it's opening up any doors for abuse.
Right. Or keep it costing a bonus action and just get rid of the exhaustion. Is it really that big of a deal for them to get one extra attack when they rage?
No.
Compared to like the Totem Barbarian, where they could get resistance to all damage types, or gain like fly speeds and things like that.
Yeah, even like
they get like a jump speed like a fly.
Even like the Storm Herald, I think, gets something that lets them do like a D8 damage every single turn. something like that, which isn't as strong as a full-on attack. But where is it? I think it's...
Oh, yeah, there's Storm, or if you take Desert, when it's activated, all creatures in the aura take 2 fire damage, no save or anything.
Right, and then the C1...
Oh, it's only when it's activated.
The C1 does 1d6 damage towards one specific person, and that damage goes up with time. So it might be a little bit stronger as a class feature, which is why I was thinking of putting in the limitation of you can activate your Frenzied Rage up to your proficiency bonus. Kind of taking in line with what Tasha's has done, and saying tying your resources to your proficiency bonus would limit how many times you can do it. I don't think that would ever outpace how many rages you could get per day, because rages go up pretty slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be some weirdness to that, actually. I'd have to look at the exact... Well, I can do that. So proficiency bonus always stays below the number of rages you have.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it starts at 2, and then rages jump up to 3 at 4th level, but then proficiency bonus doesn't go up to 3 until 5th level. So it seems to always trail for a little bit.
Okay, cool. And then by 17th
I actually
matches, and you could just do it every time, but you're 17th level.
Exactly.
I disagree that it's not that powerful. I think it is powerful enough to warrant some kind of debuff. I just think exhaustion was a very aggressive way to do that.
Yeah, because as we all know, exhaustion is one of the most punishing conditions in 5e once it starts to stack. I mean, that's pretty obvious. The first level is never that bad, but...
That's still pretty bad. Disadvantage on every ability check.
Especially for the Barbarian. Because what do Barbarians suck at? Everything that isn't combat. So now you're like, oh, hey, sorry you chose Barbarian. You're screwed. No, that's fair. I could see maybe going a different direction and doing a health-related thing where you take like 1d4 damage every time you do the attack, like that extra attack, and you're kind of unleashed on it. Just do as many times as you want, when you want to, if you're raging. No activation costs or anything, but maybe that still has to be a bonus action. I don't know.
But some amount of psychic damage.
Sure.
No resistance or anything like that.
Right.
What would be fitting, but it steps on the toe of reckless attack, is if you activate Frenzy, all attacks against you have advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be very fitting, but then, there would be never any reason to not do reckless attack, where you give yourself advantage on every attack to get advantage on every attack against you as a trade-off.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't work out too well.
Right.
There might be something... I think another thing that really screws you in this situation is exhaustion is... if you do start playing fast and loose with these frenzies, it will take you days to get back.
Yeah, that's a good
exhaustion
point.
Doesn't just go away, And I think short exhaustion, if you could kind of make that up, like for the next hour instead of the next forever.
I still, again, in the one shot I played where I was like, I need to see if this is as truly as bad as I think it is. I raged and frenzy raged the very first time for that very first encounter. And then the rest of the one shot, which probably only was an hour to 2 hours in game, I was awful. We were doing other things besides combat, and everything was at disadvantage. The first level of exhaustion is so punishing to everybody, but especially to barbarians, that I can't entertain ever giving them a level from a class feature, at least.
Right. And then the second level is half movement speed already, right? It just goes right to that.
Which
as soon as you
very
get to
punishing. It's terrible for the barbarian.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pure melee class. I mean, unless you brought a whole bunch of javelins, but that's still not fun.
Yeah, and you can't get rage damage off of that, or do your reckless attack off of that. That's all melee attacks.
Yep. So I do not recommend it. Honest to God, though, I think you could just take away the exhaustion level, like the simplest change possible. Take away the exhaustion level and just let it be. It takes a bonus action. You get it next round, and then once it wears off, that's fine. When you're out of rages, you're out of extra attacks. That's your resource that you're worried about, not this exhaustion thing.
Right.
So that's
No.
simplest.
Double down.
Okay.
All right. So we keep everything the same.
Sure.
But we make it so exhaustion doesn't apply while you're raging. And you finally become the berserker. Worthless unless you're raging.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but no. It's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea.
I have a lot of bad ideas when it comes to this particular subclass.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
actually raging yourself until you die.
I believe that was our fighter barbarian episode. Ooh, can we link it? Yeah. Or was talking about having a champion barbarian fighter that just raged until death.
There was some horrible gimmick we came up with so that it was permanently coming back to life.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It was a very dumb episode.
No, it involved them being wheeled around in a cart.
Yes.
You lose all movement speed, yeah.
That was important. Anything else around the Berserker Barbarian?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'll take this second to say, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, what you're watching, go ahead and like and subscribe and do all the things that help the YouTube algorithm continue to show our pretty faces wherever they can be found. As well as okay, that's a bad smile. If you're listening via podcast, make sure to subscribe, download those episodes, and all that stuff. So, next question is from Explosion Donut, which, that's a good name. That's a good name right there. The question is, you have a party of 3. You're infiltrating a castle to get a corrupt, powerful queen to abdicate through any means possible and get her daughter in charge. What are your builds? So this is like, what is your ultimate infiltration build?
3 bard rogues.
Yeah, that's about it, isn't it?
You need College
I
of
wanna be a
Glamour, College of
warlock.
Whisper, and then a lore bard.
Okay, then how would you build a warlock to infiltrate?
I don't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
I just convinced the guards to. It's cool. Actually,
Well, warlocks get the
they do have-
invocation, the Mask of Many Faces, I think, where they can do disguise self at will.
Yep.
they've got a ton
Yeah.
of invocations for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I probably would go about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what the Archfey, I think, because they get some, not a ton. They get like calm emotions that might be helpful. Because I feel like if you get caught while on an infiltration mission, calm emotions is like one of the better spells to have around. Just a big old, hey, please chill. And then, I don't know, it only lasts a minute, so you might just need to kill him after that anyways.
Right. Take an aspect of the moon. Could be good for a type of mission like this. So you could have
Which one's
basically
that?
double the time to go out and do shit. That's when you don't need to sleep.
Oh, that could be good for like scouting and such.
Right. Yeah. The
Yeah, you've got a
extra 8
familiar.
hours a day. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, take back to the chain with your invisible familiar and things like that. Beguiling, influence, invocation gives you proficiency in deception and persuasion skills. There's definitely options.
Yeah, I think Warlock wouldn't actually be a bad one. Again,
Yeah.
especially if you don't need everybody to actually infiltrate, and it's just like they're playing one part of the job, and I think the Warlock would be great at the reconnaissance.
Right.
They seem like they've got a whole bunch going on for them there. As for you're right, the 2 Bard Rogue multi-classes is exactly what I was thinking as well. I'd probably do the College of Whispers because that one is very like spy-esque, and it has that Words of Terror ability that is not brought up too often, so I'll read it off. If you speak to a humanoid alone for at least 1 minute, you can attempt to seed paranoia in its mind. At the end of the conversation, the target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or be frightened of you or another creature of your choice. The target is frightened in this way for 1 hour until it is attacked or damaged, or until it witnesses its allies being attacked or damaged. If it succeeds, it has no idea that you are trying to frighten it. And I think you can do it once per short or long rest. I just feel like that would be super useful in any type of espionage style mission.
Right. And then their 6th level, don't forget about that one, the coolest ability ever, Mantle of Whispers. If a humanoid dies within 30 feet of you, you capture their shadow, and then you can magically transform into them.
Yeah, that's pretty helpful too.
Yeah.
So that plus assassin rogue is
Right, I was going to say assassin rogue, so you could build your own fake identity.
Oh, isn't that great? So you build a fake identity to get through the door, and then once you're through the door, you kill somebody, and then you take their identity, and you just keep playing identity swap.
Right. Yeah, like you learn their memories, base memories, and information and things like that.
It's just a matter of
All the information they would freely share with casual acquaintances is how it's phrased.
right. Yeah, I think the goal, like I think if I was planning this myself, it would be to have basically do everything you can to get this Bard Whispers College to somebody who is high enough up that they could get near the queen. So you need to get them to kill somebody who's next to the queen in order to do that. Or I guess if you just assassinate the queen, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you assassinate the queen, you use that same ability to turn into the queen, and then as the queen, you just give up your position.
Yeah, it only lasts an hour,
or you
though.
go missing,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
Yeah, you make it
What
something
is
obvious
this?
where it's like, no, I'm not assassinated. Like,
That's what they do. They say, hey, everybody, just so we're clear, I am not getting assassinated. I'm just stepping down, okay? So if you find any body that looks like mine, that's not it. I'm out in the Poconos. Peace.
No, you do the exact opposite, because that's what the DM's expecting you to do. You turn into the queen. You loudly announce that her daughter is behind the assassination.
Oh.
You have the daughter executed. You turn back, and you go on your next adventure.
So you just kill both people and fail the mission?
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're not playing a chaotic character this campaign. Oh, man. And I mean, any other classes that kind of jump out as good for this? Maybe Echo Knight? Because they got a lot of weird movement stuff where they could, like, transfer spots with their Echo. I'm spitballing here. I don't have more than that. Seeing if somebody would grab onto it. No? Okay.
hey, druid, for any sort of infiltration, druid's good, just because it can turn into small animals.
We talked about that during our Druid Rogue episode.
Right.
Where it would be great to just turn into a spider and pop out, get a big stab with the assassin subclass.
Right. Yeah, druid, yeah, assassin, rogue, multiclass.
Yeah, it's truly a shame the thief rogue subclass just isn't that interesting. Like your main class feature is you can climb walls. That's not your main class feature, but there's just not much to it.
Right.
I feel like every time it's like, oh yeah, an infiltration. Well, thief should also be pretty good at it. And it's like, well, they're not bad at it by any means, but why would you not rather be an assassin? Second story work. When you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you gain the ability to climb faster than normal. Climbing no longer costs you extra movement. In addition, when you make a running jump, the distance you cover increases by a number of feet equal to your dexterity modifier. Yeah, that's not really a thing that comes up too often. All right. Anything else on that one? Any other classes or combinations you could want to do? It sounds like we got a pretty solid crew here of 2 assassin bards.
One glamour, one whisper.
Yeah, and then one warlock, probably archfey, but I don't think that matters as much as the invocations you take. Pact of the Chain. You said that moon one that doesn't make you that you don't have to sleep.
Right. Then like beguiling influence and mask of many faces for disguise self at will and
there you go.
Things like that. Yeah. Boom. Perfect infiltration team.
Perfect.
Only thing, it depends how high level you are. If this was a higher level, then I would say perfect because then you got bards with the magical secrets, so they could get the spells for it. If not, you might want maybe make one of the bard rogues a wizard because there's a lot of really great spells.
Yeah, even at
for
low
this
levels.
type of stuff. Yeah,
that's a good point. So maybe we could replace the
glamour bard.
Sure,
with
or
a wizard.
we just make him a rogue wizard.
There you go. Okay.
Arcane trickster.
Yeah, or he's just assassin again.
Or
in this type of situation, the ability to make a fake identity that is just like universally accepted is too useful.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Bob Francis. Love you, Bob. So, question is, should my Rune Knight / Twilight Cleric take Booming Blade to take on the Nagpa? Fuck you, Bob. I hate you.
Bob, you're banned.
I'll give you a real answer, Bob. It doesn't matter. All falls before the might of the Nagpa. So do what you will in the fleeting seconds remaining of your life before your inevitable death. And if Booming Blade makes you happy, take it.
Damn. I got chills. Now, if I was really committed to this 100th episode thing, I would have dressed up as a Nagpa. Like, dyed my skin purple and worn, like, a beak. maybe the 200th.
Oh, man. Like, pillow in the back for the hunch.
Yeah.
You could go hard with a Nagpa costume.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Well, you got half a tux going. So...
It's looking good.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least it's not a clip-on bow tie. It's like an in-betweener. I didn't have to tie it, but yeah, no.
It does wrap around your neck.
Yeah, it wraps around my neck, so it's not just a full-on clip.
Right.
All right. I've got nothing else to say on that question. That's enough for me. I liked this question. So this was from Dave on YouTube. I don't know if there is a last name. It doesn't matter. It's just Dave. You know your question. Have your initial opinions about Tasha's subclasses changed for better or for worse since first reviewing them? And are there any that you've been wanting to reassess? So I would say initially I was like head over heels for most of Tasha's subclasses. Now that I look at them, there are a couple, and it's probably skewed by like the last 3 that we did. There's a couple that are probably a little too strong, and there's definitely some power creep there. But above all, I want to take this moment to on air say, I think I was a little too harsh on the Soul Knife.
Oh shit!
Because in the first 5 levels, which a lot of people play, it's actually really useful. My issues with it come in at later levels, and I think that we just totally dismissed the usefulness of getting an extra attack as a rogue all the time in levels 1 through 6, even, let's say. So because of that, I feel like we were a little too harsh, and that opinion has changed. In later levels, I still think it sucks that you can't have a magic item, rules as written, and that ruins it a bit for me.
For the record.
What's that, Will?
I know you don't believe any of that, and it's just the comment section finally got to you.
No.
Bullied us. We were wrong. You can be an edgy, weird shadow ninja.
No, it was actually you playing one that convinced me, because we were playing a lower level game, and then actually in the one shot where I was playing a Berserker Barbarian, my fiance was playing, and she played a Soul Knife Rogue because she thought it'd be interesting, and she was super useful, like in a lot of ways, not just the extra attack, which was great, but also the ability to add a soul die to an ability check. That was really clutch. And definitely came up multiple times. I don't think she failed a single ability check the entire one shot because of that. And yeah, so it has some uses, especially at low level.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I remember, your Soul Knife Will being pretty solid. I don't remember what we played that with, but...
it was the one shot run by, I don't remember the name right now, but it was the cold weather one where we fought a dragon.
Yeah.
I know they're listening right now, and they're like, you don't remember my name. I remember the times we shared, and that's what matters.
Yes.
All right.
I was the
Forever
Super
DM.
Edgy Dark Elf or whatever.
The Forever DM. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, and I was the Tabaxi? The not the Spore Druid. It was the Swarm Ranger. Yeah, that class.
Mm-hmm.
That class is just as great as I thought it was.
Right.
No opinion changes there.
Right. I played the Wild Magic Barbarian. Then... that class was just as middling as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Then again, maybe a little better in a longer campaign, but in a one-shot, it felt pretty rough because there wasn't enough chances to get the good rolls. I rolled the same thing like 3 times.
I think there was a couple of times the DM let you re-roll just out of the fun of it, which, again, for a one-shot, great. But yeah, it's just once you roll something that's not helpful, it's just, okay, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Any other Tasha subclass opinions that have changed?
So unfortunately, we haven't been able to see a lot of them in play, which
True.
is usually where that opinion starts to change. Just because like we have our long-term campaign as our main way of playing, and so we're just not switching classes out a lot.
Oh, I thought there was more to that. You're just like, no, opinions haven't changed. But I'm sure we'll let people know. We'll continue talking about that as they get played.
Yeah, because it's the type of thing is like, so we'll read it, we'll have our big discussion, we'll have our opinion, and then like unless we see it in play or somebody like specifically tries to talk to us about it, it's like, to be honest, it's not just like constantly going in my head rethinking it. Like there's a lot of subclasses here, there's a lot of multiclasses here. It's there needs to be a reason for it, and I haven't had that for Tasha's other than those 3 that we played.
You don't just reread the Twilight Cleric and just like really think long and hard, like, is this broken? Is this really broken? All right, so next question is from Ray V. And this is, you've spoken about changes to the base sorcerer you'd like to make, and I'm curious what system-wide changes you would like to see if you were able to contribute to a theoretical 6th edition. For instance, I'd love to remove/rework initiative. So, Kevin, you specifically said that you wanted to talk about this, so I'm hoping that you've got something front of mind.
Well, I just tagged it as a neat question. But I kind of already answered it earlier. The ability to be able to more customize spells, as you were talking, like with Booming Blade fix, where it would be a complete rework of everything, though, where you have like your really base spell where it doesn't do too much, and then so I guess it's kind of like that invocations for all type thing. Yeah, I
think my big thing is after talking about 4th edition with Holy Cannoli, which we had. I had my M&M chat on. There was a really big focus in 4th edition on options when leveling up, where you could choose one of 2 subclass options that were like very similar in spirit, but it provided a lot of choice with your character. And I think a lot of, it made each of them kind of unique. And I don't see that as much in 5th edition, but with the optional class features, I feel like they're starting to go back in that direction. So I don't think 4th edition did it great. If it did a great job, then people wouldn't have hated it so much, though there was other issues. Doesn't matter right now, but I could see them being more willing to entertain that now that they have a pretty solid grasp on what does work as an optional feature. Most of the optional features so far were put in to bring classes up to balance, though, but I'd like to see it where it's more adding in options or adding in things like invocations for more classes is another way. So really, I would like to see a bit more choice. I think that people can handle it. It doesn't have to be Pathfinder levels of or even 3.5 levels where you have to just fully plan out a character beforehand. But, a little bit more choice, a couple more invocations. Also, I want to see the Ranger have Hunter's Mark be part of its base class and have invocations for Hunter's Mark. That one I'll never stop on.
Right.
It's like a specific class, but it stands.
Right, yeah.
Too big of a change.
Yeah. I would say a lot of the changes like early on that I would have wanted, they have started to make, like more customization with like race options and like starting stats and things like that. So there's like not so much just obviously optimal choices. You could more bring the flavor into it. And some optional features, which they then did in Tasha's.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of interesting because every time I have not played 3rd edition or 3.5, but every time people talk about it, they say that you really need to build your class beforehand or else or build your character from like 1 to 20. You need to kind of have an idea in mind because you very well could screw up your character. Now, I don't know if that consensus comes from people who are more focused on the optimization aspects or if it's really like 100% you will ruin your character and they will be in some ways unusable. Because I think a lot of times when we look at 5th edition, people talk about what the best options are and how you have to do this because this is the right thing to do. But in actual play at the table, balance is a lot more ephemeral and there's no like hard and fast rules to it. One character might do really well in an instance in one situation, and another character might do great in a different one. So it's very difficult in 5th edition to make a bad character like legitimately useless in all scenarios, though. I'm pretty sure that Will's character Musty comes pretty close.
Musty's not useless.
Not at all. Musty's great.
He just doesn't like being useful.
There you go. I just wanted to dish out some burns.
Right. So the person Ravi who asked this question mentioned removing or reworking initiative. I know in the past we've had some big conversations on this. I don't know if that was ever actually on the show or not. I don't know if do you have any strong opinions about it?
I super don't. I'm fine with initiative as it is. I feel like a lot of people have problems with initiative, but for me, especially since D&D Beyond has become my main way of running combat, it's really simple to just throw in some numbers and then have the order listed out in front of me, and then I don't really think about it again. So maybe there is some way out there that people love and would want to do, but I've heard people talking about shared initiative where like everybody on the PC's side goes at once and then the enemies go, and I don't like that idea. I'd have to...
That sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, like I'd have to play it, but it to me sounds like it... Really, I know exactly what would happen. PCs would be able to gang up on one enemy and kill them before they can even go, which is why initiative is so important, because if everybody gets to go first, they can really control the entire combat. So it just would make things way too swingy, and I don't understand why you'd bother. Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. I really don't have strong opinions about initiative. I feel like it's fine.
Yeah. I see some common complaints about how it's like it's done once and it's locked in, and so you could be like supposed to be the fast, nimble, high dexterous character who has a few combats in a row for some bad rolls, and it's just you're not living up to that. And so there's the idea of re-rolling initiative at the start of every round. And in some senses, I could see why that could be neat and make things interesting and change it up, where if it's not... Because also at some point then the battles get a little predictable, because like we know the initiative order and we know, all right, this is just we just need to play this one out, but we know what's going to happen. Where if it's constantly changing, that's not the case. But the bookkeeping of that's going to slow things down to a crawl. Like it just... If anybody plays that way, I'd like to hear how much does it slow down your combat?
Yeah, I can't imagine a world where it doesn't, because I've gone through a lot of iterations of keeping track of initiative. I've done writing it on, cards or whatever, and like putting everybody in order. I've done Excel spreadsheets where I would write it down for everybody. We've used D&D Beyond. I've probably used like 6 other things, like just scratch paper on the side. And the only one that I could see where it might be possible is if you have cards like over the DM screen and you set the initiative order and then people roll and you go, okay, time to change it around. Who's first? Great. Move you to the front. Move you to the front. Move you to the front. But still, as a DM, I like combats with like 10 enemies. Right. And changing them around every time would suck. So you're either going to get to the point where you leave NPCs in their initiative, or like only important NPCs move around. It's all too complicated.
Or you just handle it with software. But to do that, you would need to take the rolling away from the player.
Right.
Of their initiative roll, where you just click a button and it reshuffles it in. Like, you just make sure they have everyone's initiative bonus. Displayed somewhere, or not even displayed somewhere. Leave it a big mystery. And I could see that being kind of neat. Like, I like rolling my D20, and like I like doing the initiative roll. It feels like a good like starter to combat. But I don't know. I mean, I can make that sacrifice to play around with it. Of DM gets to click a button at the start of every round. Initiative gets completely reshuffled, and it is a mystery, just one at a time. You're next. You're next. You're next.
Yeah, that might work well for experienced players, but realistically,
sure,
that would be so bad for most people, just because they'd have to be reacting so on the fly of like, oh my god, it's my turn. Okay,
that's a really good point. Oh, yeah.
What do I want to do based on this current situation?
Yeah, we've gotten to the point where, for the most part, we're pretty quick, but a lot of that is also planning out ahead of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the opposite of fixed initiative. Like, you just have your initiative number of, like, your dex modifier, or, like, 8 plus your dex, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's always when you go, no matter what.
Right. I don't have an issue with that one. I don't see a reason why it's bad. It just doesn't sound as fun to me. I like the unpredictability of initiative. That's it. I don't know. I think that's fun. And you said, sometimes the person with +8 initiative, the rogue bard, keep going back to them this episode. They roll poorly for their initiative for 3 combats in a row. Well, I don't know. Sometimes the dice suck. Sometimes the paladin misses every attack in a combat. That's how the game goes. That's why we're playing with dice. So that doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah. I think a cool thing to handle all that would be ways to modify where you are in the initiative order. Like, you could say, I'm going to take +3, but then I have disadvantage on the first round, or for 2 rounds or 3 rounds, every attack against me has advantage, or something like that.
That could be a cool table rule to have. Yeah. I could see somebody doing that. Not something I'd want to codify for the world, because then, I don't know, at the end of the day, people will optimize it in some way and be like, this one only removes your bonus action, so you should always do this. And then, no, I don't need that. Right. But for just your table, if you want to throw something in like that, I think that's pretty cool. Way to get yourself up, even if it's just for a round, maybe, though that adds to some bookkeeping.
Right.
And we're very bookkeeping light at our table.
We are. So speaking of that, then, another major system introduced here in 5th edition, advantage, disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have any strong opinions on that. Prior to it, I guess I haven't played 4th. My understanding, though, was not part of that, but I definitely know in 3.5, it was you got numerical modifiers to things, and you had to keep track of them, and it could vary from round to round. And when you go to make an attack, you have to say, all right, I get a plus from these 3 things and a minus from these 4, and it nets out to a +2 in addition to my normal. So I see a lot of people praising advantage and disadvantage because it's so simple and eloquent, and it's just easy to grasp. And others saying it's way too simplistic. It's just this kind of broad stroke, just a big hammer, for... I had a metaphor there and I lost it halfway through. But yeah, it's just it's too blunt.
Yeah. It's just a giant hammer, and nobody knows what it's doing. It's who gave this guy a hammer?
Just sitting there.
Yeah.
Menacingly.
No, I'll save you. So I do think that advantage and disadvantage is overall good, and I've kind of fought with this a lot, especially when we first started playing D&D and pre-podcast years, when we would just be talking. It's well, this in my head should just be a smaller benefit. Why is advantage? Because advantage by a numerical standpoint gives +5. That's the theoretical +5 to whatever your roll is. So the idea of adding only +1 or +2 or +3, whatever, just seems to make more sense. And people talk about it with flanking, which isn't a rule that we use because I absolutely hate it.
We should circle back to that, though.
Sure, we can circle back to that.
Yeah.
We'll get on both sides of the argument.
Hey.
So I've seen people say that flanking advantage is a little too strong, and that's why it doesn't work well in 5th edition, so it should be +2. And I understand that, but I just think at the end of the day, the beauty in 5th edition comes from the simplicity in its determination of rolls. When you roll a die, it takes very little time to decide whether or not it succeeded. And keeping that is, to me, important and what I like about the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. Only possible change I could see is if you get multiple sources of advantage and disadvantage. As written, they just cancel out.
Right.
But I say if you have 2 sources of advantage and 1 source of disadvantage, that you end up with advantage. That's a pretty common house rule.
Yeah, that I actually could get down with, because that always hurts a little bit.
Yeah. Also, I called the system eloquent No, you guys didn't call me out on that. It's elegance.
I was-
Eloquence is well spoken. Elegance. It's an elegant system.
I was honestly thinking back in my head too that either we had that conversation on air before, or I've just had that like internal debate of if it should be elegant or eloquent. We've definitely talked about this before.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
The words are too close. English is dumb. Or I'm dumb and just mix words up.
It can be both. English can be dumb. No. English can be dumb and you can be dumb.
That is very true.
But yeah, those two words are very close, very similar in meaning. And what did you say? It's like elegant is a like defining trait, where eloquent is like speak specifically or speech specifically.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure eloquence is specific to speech.
Okay.
Eloquent is when you're elegant with words.
Fluent or persuasive
Right.
in speaking or writing. Yeah.
There you go. Eloquent is when you, but there's no good way to remember that. It's not like there's a pneumatic
Just
device.
put it in your brain and leave it there. It's
Yeah, and
fine,
elegant is pleasing, graceful, and stylish in appearance or manner.
But I'm going to mess it up. And I'm going to say elegant is when you're eloquent with your words. See?
Ooh.
I could mess it up. I'm so stupid. Save me, Will. No. All right. Flanking. Any strong feelings on that? I know we don't use flanking. Anytime it's come up, we've continued to decide that we won't use flanking.
So back up real quick. Flanking is an optional variant in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So it's like it is part of 5th edition, but it's not codified in. It's like clearly not designed around it, because if it was, it would just be part of the player handbook. So I feel this one like fits in this in between about like a system that's part of it or not.
Sure.
I would not want to see it codified, and I mean I can't say if I would want to see it in a 6th edition or not, because it would be completely different and maybe it would work really well in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like flanking because it just on paper sounds like it could be really cool, because there's not a huge incentive of where you stand as long as you're next to who you want to be next to, and like not too bunched up for AoEs. But other than that is not the matter on like what are the 6 squares you are around them. Flanking, it does if you are behind them and then someone else is on the other side. Then you get advantage on the attacks, right?
Yes.
And that just incentivizes the same thing every time, where you just conga line it, and sounds like it would add neat tactical decisions to combat, but I think it actually takes them away because it is such an overwhelmingly obvious choice to make every single time. It's like, well, of course that's how we're going to stand, and then an enemy is going to stand behind me, and then someone will stand behind that enemy, and then an enemy will stand behind them.
Yep, 100%. I think that's a great way of putting it. It seems like it opens up for tactics, but it really just shuts them down, because advantage is so strong. As I said, it's basically a +5 to your attack. And if somebody said, hey, you can get if you stand over here, you get nothing. If you stand here, you get +5 to your attack. It's like, oh yeah, definitely, I want that. I also think I take issue with it because 5th edition has no concept of a direction that you're facing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, flanking kind of puts that as a thing. It makes it seem like you're facing a direction to some extent.
But it's not. You just need enemies on opposite sides of
you.
Right?
Yeah. It just feels weird. Everybody has just eyes on all parts of their head at all times, and that's okay with me.
Right. Also, flanking really diminishes a lot of classes and class features and spells and stuff like that,
Reckless
because it's
attack.
a very, very easy way to get advantage. And they made advantage such a good thing, and then specific classes and features and stuff around getting advantage, because flanking is not written into the core rules.
Right.
And then you add it in, and now all of a sudden it's basically just a nerf to all of these abilities.
Right. As saying, like, would the barbarian rather reckless attack, or would they rather find a way to get flanking? And the answer is pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of what the issue we're getting at right now is that when you're within the reach of an enemy, you can just have a dance party as long as you stay there. It doesn't matter. You can circle the enemy. That's ridiculous. That's just not how it's just silly. And that's something to keep in mind, is that D&D combat is not a very serious tactical experience. And if you go too hard trying to make it that, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, it's true. It's not a realism simulator. Like, yes, in real life, if you had an enemy on both sides of you, it would B, it would put you at a disadvantage. I mean, nobody's arguing that by any means. But from a purely mechanical standpoint, it steps on too much.
Right.
And that's kind of more philosophical direction to take this, but D&D gets a lot of shit for being a very middle-of-the-road RPG, where you've got your flavor and you've got your combat, and neither of them are particularly flexible or good, but it's where I think most people want it. There are much better tactical games out there, and you and your friends can just sit down at a table and pretend to be anything you want without even books if you want to. It's a lot more flexible than D&D. But D&D scratches the itch by being like an imperfect version of both those things.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have to keep coming back to it when we know we have access to other stuff, but
I don't know. I still haven't played I haven't played Pathfinder or anything, but I've read other game
I'm talking
systems.
even just like going the path of like board games, just like tactical, crunchy board games.
Sure.
No reason you couldn't roleplay with that as well.
I guess. Maybe. That sounds weird.
I mean, there are actually, like, with something like Warhammer, you play like 50 models. You can't roleplay as 50 mindless Leviathan.
What do you think I do every time I DM?
Right.
Y'all make me come up with so many names that I'm just like, I hope none of these get asked for again, because I half wrote them and I gave no defining characteristics.
This is quest giver or meat sack. You either beat him to death or get information.
Okay.
What else do you want?
Not all of them. Only when not quest givers. Quest givers, I go too far with making backstory and personality for it. Don't diminish that for me. All right, moving on though. New question. This is from. We're gonna do one from Einstein's cock, because you just gotta
need an excuse to say the username.
Yeah. This is a simple one. How do you
It's also not a bad question.
No, how do you... Well, there's two, so how do you know which one I'm asking?
Because you marked which one you liked.
Oh, damn it. How do you each prefer to level up your parties? Do you think a level N per N-1 sessions is reasonable, i.e. level 2 after 1 session, level 3 after 2 sessions, blah, 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 blah. How do you like to level up your party? And I have tried experience. I have tried trying to do like a set scale of like so many sessions. And then more recently, I have done just when I think it feels right, milestone leveling. And I know from my perspective, I like that because I think that each level brings a different feeling to the table. The level 7 to level 10 area has like a really great feeling as a DM where you can kind of access most monsters. They're not so high level that they're absolutely destroying everything. So I end up spending a good amount of time in that leveling area because I think it's fun to run as a DM and I like that control. And this like, I'm turning it back to you guys to say, how do you like that? What do you like? Would you rather leveling be a bit more set and expected?
No, I like the milestone leveling of when it feels right. Interestingly, every time you have given us a level up, and it's always like a surprise, I've like right before thought about it, is like, this would be a good time for a level up, but that's coming, and then you level us up. So we're definitely in sync there on that. I don't like experience leveling. I don't like keeping track of that. I feel like it kind of incentivizes certain play styles of always doing things to seek the experience points. And I understand you could give experience for like not doing in combat,
right,
but that gets kind of weird and iffy and
things
like that.
I did try that at one point it was like an open world pirate campaign basically, and I was like, since there won't be milestones, there won't be milestone leveling, so let's do experience. And the way that it worked out was every time they ended up gathering and completing a quest, I would go, here, have enough experience to get you to the next level. I was like, oh, okay, when I'm making up the experience points, this is kind of just milestone leveling.
Right.
Because combat by itself, unless combat is a huge part of your game, makes it take a long time to get to the next level. Because generally, if I remember correctly, it's been so long, but experience is given by, you add up the XP that all of the creatures should give, and then you divide it among the players. So if you have 5 players, it's it's really not that much experience at a time unless you're doing 4, 5, 6 combats a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that taking a lot longer. And then in terms of the speed that we're leveling up, like I like it when it goes slower, and that's what our main campaign has been. It feels like every time we level up, it's a big deal. You get something new. I mean, luckily there's no truly dead levels in 5th edition.
Right.
Though some classes are very close to them. And then we spend a lot of time at that level getting to know the new character and how to fold in the new ability or spell or whatever into that character and fully utilizing that stuff. And then you've done a good job of kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, I think this is growing a little stale. I'm ready for level up. And then we level up.
Yeah.
And then it starts over again. I don't like the rapid fire leveling, like in every session level or every other session level where it's just too quick. I feel like we're not earning it then and not really getting to know how to best play the character and how to make the most use of what we have and everything.
Yeah, and I think that is the most important part where you're saying it feels like you get to actually know your character and use the level up. A lot of times I feel like if you level up really quickly, you're getting new abilities before you even try out abilities you've gotten at earlier levels. So to me, nobody should be leveling up until every new ability is used. That's not like a hard and fast rule that I use, and I'm not like keeping track of when you do it, but that's about the feeling that I want to go for is like if you get an ability, it should be used before we're like, hey, here's more levels. As long as everything is consistent, yada, yada, yada. We've got one player at our table right now who I've been trying to level up quicker because she was behind in levels. That's a little different of a scenario. But and then the other aspect is, I think, this is like kind of the obvious one, I'm surprised didn't lead with this, is that it makes in-game events have even more weight to them. For example, recently you guys killed a ancient green dragon. So you killed them, it was freaking awesome, and you leveled up afterwards. And that's just like, yes, like this is great. That's what I want to hear. We leveled up. Whereas if I said, actually, you didn't get enough experience to get you right over that cusp. So when you guys have a random encounter out in the forest, then you'll level up.
Right.
Like, that sucks. I don't want that.
Right.
And I think it's funny that never bothers me when I'm playing a video game. When I'm playing Fallout and I'm roaming the Mojave, I'm never like, oh man, this quest didn't level me up. It was, just some random thing I was killing. And I think it's because it's such a singular experience. It's not like everybody at the table doing it at the same time. And it's like, I don't know, this group thing that's folded in with the story. Milestone will continue to win out for me. I have no issues with people doing experience. It's just, I think it fits our style better.
Right. And then in terms of like the video game leveling up versus D&D, with D&D, like you have your book out and here's like everything you will get. And each level here's this like new big features, like multiple paragraphs of text of the new thing you could do. Usually in a video game, there's more levels and each level means less.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
That's a good point.
A stat or two goes up. So your strength goes from 57 to 59 and the maximum is 250. So it's not that big of a deal. And maybe you can pick a new perk, which increases your damage by 10% or something like that. And it's like, it's just.
Yeah, it does not have the same weight that a level does in D&D.
Right.
That's a good point. Good point. Will, you've been quiet. Any feelings on leveling? Do you have?
Yeah, I disagree with literally everything you said.
Ah, damn it. Why did I ask?
Like actually, or
kind of actually. I get like that. I think Milestone is just kind of the inevitability. It grants the DM control that they need. If you don't have that, it's just the DM needs to control the game probably more than some people are comfortable with, for it to stay on track and not get out of control. There's just so much that you have to do as a DM, remembering things, balancing things, building things, that I think it's a good compromise. But you are just handing these levels out. Like the earning it is completely synthetic.
Sure. You could say that. I mean, so is everything. D&D's a game. It's all in our imagination.
Real,
yeah,
bro.
Right. But I get where you're coming from. When you have experience, there is at least a metric on there that the player can say, yes, I earned this because of each of the things that I killed. Whereas in Milestone, it's the DM saying, now feels like the right time for it. Now, that's why I think I try to tie it to story moments and, again, fold in that role-playing aspect where your warlock patron asked you to do something and you did it, so you get more power. To me, that's more important and more meaningful than saying, oh, this little number hit the number that I wanted it to. So even regardless of the DM control aspect, I think it's truly, above all, for the story aspects for me, is what makes it so fun.
I think that it's all the other problem is it's really hard to reward your players consistently. Gold just stops mattering. We talked about this many times before. Experience is a great way to do that. But I guess I kind of end up agreeing with you that while I prefer experience, I know it just doesn't work that well.
Yeah, and also there's so many ways to give rewards that aren't gold, that aren't experience. You can give, like the time I gave you guys a shared language is a perfect example. During downtime, you had a chance to become proficient in a skill. Little things like that. I see people giving feats as rewards for quests. There's so many things that you can do that don't have to just be straight experience or gold.
Yeah, it's just less constant. And these quality rewards, I think, are obviously superior than a little number go up. But like every fight is meaningless without experience in general. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, I beat these goblins. What do I get? Nothing.
That's fair. That's fair. And that has, I think, been a big reason why we have started to stray away from random encounters, because random encounters do give that, I guess, when there's no experience reward to a random encounter, they become random and pointless. Whereas if you get at least experience from them, you're getting something out of it. Now, some people have seen that and taken that and said, well, I'm going to keep random encounters and use experience. I think I've seen that and gone, I don't think random encounters are really what we're here for, because that's just more combat that doesn't have the weight to it that I think is what makes combat fun. I love me some number crunching, but I also want at the end of it to have the story change in some fashion most of the time. Sometimes I just want a cool monster fight.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're getting away from the experience, the way to handle random encounters is non-random encounters. They kind of have the feeling of, oh, this is a random encounter, you're traveling, you get attacked. But it's something that DM is planned for, and maybe it ties into that story, or sparks a side quest or part of that, or it is just, a really cool, unique set piece encounter.
Right. Like the time you guys were walking through forest and had you fight the Vegapygmies, which are really neat. We talked about them, and this kind of half answers somebody's question. Oh yeah, Vegapygmy episode. Yeah. Please go watch it. Nobody watched it because nobody knows what Vegapygmies are, and that's the way it works. So it's okay. Right. So I really wanted you guys to fight them, and I also wanted it to be a part of the world building. So it wasn't just like a totally random encounter, but it definitely didn't have high stakes by any means. If you failed to kill the Vegapygmies, they wouldn't have, I don't know, gotten bigger and killed a town or something like that. Like it just, I don't know, maybe you would have heard like 6 weeks later of somebody walking through the forest and getting killed by the creatures. So that would have sucked. But in general, it was a random encounter in name only. All right, another question. All right, so this one is from No More Hot Takes. And the question is, what D&D crossovers, like with Magic the Gathering, would you choose if you could choose from anything? So this would be bringing in potentially subclasses, bringing in world-building tools, and who knows what else.
For me, and I tagged this one's interesting because I had an answer, because I'm also just rewatching the show right now, Avatar, the Last Airbender variety, not Blue Alien variety.
Yeah.
I can work perfectly. You have a book over that world. I don't know if that world actually has a name. Come to think of it.
I don't
the Avatar world.
think so.
I can't think of it ever being said.
Yeah.
But maybe it's
called
somewhere
Avatar.
Yeah, the Avatar world, sure. And it goes into the history and the lore of the 4 different nations, and there's different creatures and stuff. And there's, if you're not part of if have not seen the show, there's tons and tons of inspiration for monsters in there.
They literally just take 2 of our normal monsters and smush them together. But
they still make it really neat.
Yeah.
Not monsters, like animals.
Animals, sorry.
But they still end up being like really neat, cool stuff. Where it sounds like it should just be kind of lame, but I don't know. They make them unique. They make them cool. And then there's the lizard that someone rides who's blind but has perfect sense through sight and can paralyze people with their tongue, and it's like shit like that.
Yeah.
Then the Earth King has a bear.
He's got a bear, just like a normal bear. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing.
And then you add just 1 class to it, benders, and then 4 subclasses of the 4 elements. And then, you probably want to give them their own kind of unique. I wouldn't just make it spells, but kind of their own unique mechanic.
Yeah,
for it.
That would make sense.
And I think that could be really cool and really well done. I did hear, I know there's a Avatar Last Airbender tabletop RPG that's on Kickstarter right now. I don't know if it's quite gonna like fit that for what I'm looking for. It looks like it's more.
It has a lot of the world
not
building
as crunchy and stuff.
It has a lot of the world building stuff that I think will be great.
Right.
It definitely does not have the crunch as far as I can tell. It's a lot of the pass, fail, partial success, even in combat type stuff. So.
Right, and I don't think it's like specific rules for bending, and I obviously haven't read it. And some people may love it, and that might be great, but I don't think that one's going to quite be for me. So that's still going to be my answer for the D&D crossover.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Are you saying that you're not completely satisfied with the way of the 4 elements?
Can't believe I almost forgot about that entirely.
I did too, actually. Yeah, like, I guess that was probably heavily inspired from it. But see, the problem with that is trying to fit in it.
I don't think Way of the 4 Elements was inspired from Avatar. I think it actually came out. I don't know if it was before. I don't remember the timeline. How old is Avatar at this point?
I mean, these are like historical ideas.
Yeah,
it's fantasy.
It's controlling the elements. That's not by any means a unique concept. Not to say that Avatar didn't do something very unique with it. I like how we're worried about like. I hope I don't upset any Avatar fans. We love Avatar.
The Avatar released in 2005,
and
it's a lot older at this point. D&D 5e is like what, 6 years old?
7, 8.
Yeah, not 2005.
We are closer to the heat death of
I was
the universe.
We are. I was well out of high school, and I think even college when D&D 5th edition came out.
Okay, that's fine. Either way, whether or not it's based on it doesn't matter, because if the person had never heard of Avatar, they still could have probably come up with that class, and they still would have run it into the ground like they did. So there's that.
So even just like the issue of like the mechanics not being good and viable, the flavor of it to line up with like the Avatar universe, it's all meshed together. Like it's, I guess you could if you want to play the Avatar, that's what you do. But there's D&D doesn't really work well with that, where you're the one sole savior and hero of the world, and the rest of the party just supports me.
I guess to some extent, because the power, like the expectation would be that the power is much higher.
Yeah,
the power level's higher.
Yes, that's what I mean. The power level is
So ignoring the power level disparity, I think D&D loves that space of you all being the chosen ones in some fashion.
The group.
Yeah. So I mean, if you just say, okay, you're the Avatar chosen one, and you're the Waterbender chosen one, and you're this chosen one, like you're all chosen ones. I think you could ignore the power disparity, like needing to have a power disparity to make that dynamic work.
Right.
The setting that I would want right now, and there's tons of supplements for it and such, and I'm pulling monsters out of it as well, but I think that the Witcher series would be fantastic to have a official crossover with D&D, because I would really, really want a Witcher class, probably a subclass of the Ranger, most likely. Like a Ranger who has been mutated, gone through the trial of grasses, and they often can make different potions and concoctions to affect themselves for upcoming fights, and also kind of tying in that Monster Hunter knowledge, which there's a good amount of Monster Hunter Rangers right now. But I think adding in some unique Witcher themed aspects would be super, super cool. The world itself has, I mean, there's definitely enough there for an entire setting book, without a doubt.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think there is actually a Witcher RPG, but same deal. It's like, well, I want it in 5th edition because I'm needy.
Because we don't like change.
We don't like change, and a lot of times different teams, or what's the word I'm looking for, different RPGs seem to not go for the crunchy combat, and there's a couple of actual crunchy combat games that are out there. Pathfinder, and some others. What'd you say? Pathfinder 2? Yeah. So there's a couple out there, but I think a lot of times people are very obsessed with the setting and want to put that setting into an RPG, which is great and a noble idea, but then they don't also have the ability to make the combat as crunchy, because that takes a lot of work to make a crunchy game system. It's really, really easy, and this isn't a negative thing.
Well, I say I don't.
Yeah, it's very easy to make a role-playing game from the aspect of what determines if this passes or fails. I can literally make a coin flip role-playing game where we sit here and I go, I want to try this, and I go, all right, flip a coin. It's heads, you succeed. Boom, we've created a role-playing game. It takes more effort to put something together that is, crunchier.
To play. Yeah. Oh, okay. We were saying different things there, but yeah.
Yeah, they can both be fun. I've had a blast playing simple games. No argument there.
Right.
And Will, I'll prompt you. Do you have anything that you would want to pull into D&D?
The Sopranos.
Fuck, that got me.
So actually, I've never actually watched the show.
It's about.
I don't know if you're being serious or not.
It's an Italian mafia
I can
show.
never tell. I don't care. It's Will. He might have a really good point here.
I don't have a really good one. It's just it's me ripping off spaghetti warlocks. I don't know. He's very Italian.
I am going to say there has to be some animes that you would want to see.
You'd be amazed how little I think that would add to this game. Animes, the number of animes that have really unique fantasy elements is in the single digit ratio.
That's true. And I really enjoy the series Claymore. I could see that pull in well, but I'm not even going to get into that. That I don't need that in 5th edition by any means. But one game that I've always really wanted is a Full Metal Alchemist RPG. I don't think it would work well in 5th edition, and I don't think that should be transported, but that I always felt like would be an awesome RPG. And I had the dreams of putting that together at one point, but never got around to it. But it's so perfect. Cool. It very well encapsulates that idea of there being multiple skill sets and different classes of you are a trained military member, you're from the East and have I think it's chi. I don't remember the specifics. It's been a while. And then of course, being an actual alchemist, there's tons that you can do. Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, I'd play that. That's one of the few animes I've watched all the way through and fully absorbed and really enjoyed.
Yeah, minus all the hentai, right? Because those, just me. Okay, next question. I think we're about an hour and a half right now. I think we got time for, do one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
All right, let's see. All right, so the last one we'll do is quite fitting because it's about multiclassing, which is, if you didn't know, a big part of our show. This is from Reaper Zeus. And this is, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts about what you would change around the multiclassing rules in general, or some specific things if you'd like. For general, would you change the spell slot progression at all? Learning and preparing spells? What about proficiencies you gain? Would you make changes to when you get ASIs, cantrip scaling, proficiency, change requirements? That is a lot of stuff that could be changed. I don't know. Thoughts around changing multiclassing rules, or just how multiclassing is set up right now?
Yeah, I think cantrip scaling could be adjusted. I think it's a little strong, as is where it's on character level, not class level. I'm not saying just make it class level because that's kind of too big of a nerf, but there needs to be something. Like, it needs its own like table, just like spellcasting progression has.
So I think that's a great one, actually. I think that cantrips should only go up in power if you're taking spellcasting levels. I don't think that going one level into wizard and then 19 into fighter should get you a scorching ray, or not scorching ray. I always forget the fire one. Firebolt. That's it. Yeah. That does 4d10 damage. That's ridiculous to me. And you're not a level 20 wizard. You should not have that level of power. So if you take 10 levels in wizard and 10 levels in sorcerer, sure, that makes sense to me. Well, that multi-class doesn't make sense to me, but but getting a powerful cantrip makes sense to me.
Right.
So that would be like my quick fix to it.
That would be a pretty easy fix, yeah.
And that's how it works with spell slot progression. Like, you don't get more spell slots because you went into a fighter. That's the punishment for multi-classing. So, yeah.
What are you thinking? Like half? Like kind of how it is? You know, we max out at 17 normally, so you do what, level 10 maybe?
10 for what?
To max out, if you're multiclassing.
Oh, saying like your cantrips couldn't scale past there?
No, I'm just wondering, like, how would this ratio work? Or would it be 1-to-1?
I feel like we got on a different topic here.
Yeah, you've lost us.
Okay, all right. So the cantrip scale with these class levels now, would it be just normal scaling? There's no change to that? You just will never get this maxed out cantrip because you'll never be a maxed out wizard?
Well, I'm saying that there shouldn't be scaling unless you're, well, if you're not going into a... All right, let me restate my point. How about this? I'm saying that if you are going into a spellcaster, like you have spells in general, then it's fine to me to have you tick up closer to that cantrip power up. Whereas if you go into fighter, barbarian, whatever, then you get nothing. There's no ratio to it. You don't get any progression towards the cantrip. So if you took 5 levels in fighter, you're never going to get to that point where your cantrip does the full cantrip damage, because that's your sacrifice. You get an extra attack. You don't get extra attack and the most powerful cantrips in the game.
Got it. Yeah. I actually agree pretty strongly. I think that would legitimately, like, our body of work would be invalidated almost immediately. That's how big this change is. It would destroy so many combos just right out of the gate.
But it's all the ones that I hate.
I don't think that's bad.
Yeah,
I hate these things.
And
it fixes Booming Blade too, to be honest.
Yeah,
it kind of does.
It does. Man, yeah, we were just riffing here, but I think I did it. I fixed multiclassing, guys. Yeah, as for like spell slot progression, I think that's handled fine. I don't love the way that you get, what are they called? Proficiencies. I feel like that should be a little more you can choose. But as it is right now, it's very, very kind of hard-coded of like, okay, you were a fighter second. So because you were a fighter second, you can't get heavy armor. And it just feels a little arbitrary to me when those distinctions are made. And I don't know.
Yeah, that one very much sounds like a balance thing than a realism thing.
Sure.
We had this conversation very recently about, it's in Tasha somewhere where they like give you ranks like weapons, armor, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're talking about how you could have done the racial changes in like a more complicated way of if like each thing was tiered, and okay, heavy armor from the dwarf is like a tier 3 thing, so you have to get rid of a tier 1 and a tier 2 in order to get that.
Or just make it points. You have 20 points to work with, and heavy armor is worth 7 points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe something along those same lines for multiclassing. It definitely adds some complexity, and that's against the spirit of it. But I think that would be nicer, because a lot of times it just, as I said, it feels arbitrary. I go 1 level into wizard, and the next level I go into fighter, and it's like, well, you never get heavy armor, and you can never get heavy armor unless you take a feat. And it's like, well, I could go 18 more levels into fighter and still never get that. Or I could have gone into wizard at 2nd level and I could have gotten it. So all that it does...
I feel stronger about just not giving these proficiencies and making it easier to acquire them.
Okay.
But you have to get them, like the feats. I like the feats, but the reality is anyone who takes like the feat that lets you wear medium armor, who did that? Who's ever done that? There should be a reason to do that.
Sure. Do you mean like from a role-playing perspective?
Yes, and mechanically.
And mechanically, okay.
But that's the bigger, like, how do we completely change how feats work and just, like, gut the game so that every level you get a special feat and there's tiers of feats and there's class feats and...
Yeah.
That'd be cool. It's just a lot.
Yeah, and that's getting closer to, like, 4th edition style.
Yeah. Or you're getting closer to just a classless system.
Sure.
Where, again, you at level 1, you have 100 points to work with. Spend them how you want. Here's a whole bunch of things you could buy.
Yeah.
Sure, there's game systems like that, and they're neat. It's definitely not D&D, though.
No, and not what I'd want. I like the class
Yeah.
distinction in D&D. That's what makes it fun.
Right. Yeah, and in terms of making like those proficiencies easier to get, I could see that being a pretty big issue for non-multiclassing. If you're a wizard and it's really easy to just get heavy armor without having to multiclass out.
Yeah.
Seems kind of broken.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. That's enough on that one. And I've got one more question, and this isn't from a fan. This is from me. And I was just going to ask you guys about it, like not on air, but hey, you know what? We're asking questions. We're talking. It works. How do you feel about everyone getting a feat at 1st level? Excluding, this is, I think, my limitation, excluding Great Weapon Master, Sharpshooter, and kind of the, like, obvious broken ones. I don't want to say broken, just, like, the obvious really strong ones. That's a very common thing that people do, is they say, 1st level, everyone gets a feat. I don't know if the limitation of, no Sharpshooter is put on there, or Crossbow Expert, but I was considering doing that for our next game.
I like it, yeah, with the limitation of... Like Great Weapon Master and things like that. You'd have to come up with a list, and
which I think we could do easily.
Yeah, some were like right in between, like Sentinel, Polar Master.
I would make a very pared down list and call it like 1st level feats.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, you're
actually, that might be easier.
Guy.
Just assume most feats are not on this list, and then put like 10 on there.
That's a good point.
And just like the flavor ones,
right? Yeah,
that I think's great.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of really cool, flavorful feats that are like kind of hard to pick when you're playing in a campaign or an adventure where like combat's tough, and we like to kind of optimize because that's how we have fun with it. And
yeah,
sometimes it makes it hard to pick those other feats.
And I think with the new Tasha's racial origins thing, it makes variant human feel a little pointless, and I very much want to get away from people choosing their origin based on the stats of it. That just is kind of dumb to me. Like we don't need to do that.
Right.
So if like a class build relies on variant human, it's like, just don't. Let's do something else. But yeah, I would love the ability for people to get Keen Mind, which is like a feat that no one's ever going to pick otherwise. Or it's like, I remember everything I've ever seen before.
I've picked that one.
Wasn't that for like a quick character?
Or Rear, the one Will ran the campaign.
Yeah, the detective guy.
Inquisitor detective, yeah.
Right. And it was really fun and memorable.
And observant, and yeah.
Because of the fact that he had the feat. Obviously, you sacrificed an ASI for that, or it was very inhuman. Whatever it was, doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. So I think next campaign we'll probably end up doing that. Everybody just gets a free low tier feat for free. All right, there it is, 100th episode. We did it.
Yay!
I don't know why we did it, but here we are. Why did we make 100 episodes of this crap?
It's fun.
It is fun.
I ask myself every day.
People seem to like it.
Well then, let's wrap it up. You guys, any like words you want to say to everybody? I could say something. I'm wearing fancy Fancy stuff.
I say, you're the one who got your stuff.
All right. Well, I'll say to everybody who is listening, be this your first time or your 100th episode, thank you so much for coming back, engaging with us in whatever ways that you do, and just overall supporting this silly thing that we've been doing for almost 3 years now. We really do. I'll speak for everyone here. We love making it. Will shows up, and it's just crazy to me that the fact that we actually have gotten any traction, and the fact that anybody wants to listen to our ramblings or hear our thoughts or take them into consideration for their game. Anytime somebody's told me that they used a monster we talked about and specifically used one of our ideas, it makes my day. And I don't know, it sounds really dumb and cliche, but it's 100% because of the interactions we get back is why we keep doing this. So thank you all, and also you're welcome, because we're going to keep making content.
Yeah, 100 more episodes.
100 more episodes.
Start planning our 200th episode.
1,000 more episodes.
Maybe Will put on a suit.
You can stop this. Go to our Patreon.
Pay us
for $600,000. We'll never talk about this again.
I'm going to make that a tier now, like a $10,000 tier where we'll stop making anything. I'd do it. I'd compromise my principles for $10,000 a month. If you really hate the show. All right. Well, as usual, find us where you get your podcasts or your YouTubes or whatever. Thanks to our patrons. You're all awesome. I don't have the list up in front of me, but I asked Kevin to make a little ticker so that I don't forget it. This is your motivation to make that before this episode ends. It'll take a couple seconds. But I do know to shout out to Bob Francis, who we mocked earlier. He recently signed up for the patron. So love you, Bob, actually, and go kill some Nagpas. Anything else? You want to close it out, Kev?
Nope. Thanks for listening.